The snow fell in silence, the kind of silence that muffles the whole world. Grant McCoy sat alone at his table, chewing salt pork by the weak light of a single candle. 3 years he'd eaten this way. 3 years of silence, no conversation, no laughter, just the sound of the wind screaming against the logs of his cabin. He was a man hollowed out by grief, a man just waiting to die. Then, the night exploded. Boom, boom, boom. A sound so violent it shook the dirt from the rafters. Someone was pounding on his door, not knocking, trying to break it down. Grant's hand didn't tremble, it just moved. It found the cold steel of the rifle leaning against his chair. An old instinct, the instinct of a man who had already lost everything and had nothing left to fear. He moved to the door, silent as the snow. He didn't call out, he just listened. "Please, open the door. Please, help us." A voice, a kid, and behind it, the sound of labored breathing. Pain. Grant pulled the heavy wooden bar back. He cracked the door open an inch. The wind tore at him, stinging his face with ice. And a body fell through the opening, collapsing onto the floor. It was a boy, maybe 14. His face was sheet white, pale from blood loss and the bitter cold. A dark stain was spreading across his shoulder. He tried to get up, scrambling on the floorboards, looking back into the storm. "Hope! Get inside! Get in!" Grant looked past him, and his heart stopped. Standing in the swirling snow was a little girl, couldn't have been more than 8. Her dress was ripped to ribbons, her feet were wrapped in rags. She was trembling so hard it looked like she might shatter. But she wasn't crying. Her eyes were wide, vacant, and 1,000 years old. She clutched a small, worn wooden cross in one hand, holding it like it was the only thing holding her up. "Sir," the boy gasped, blood bubbling at his lips. "If they come, you gotta hide my sister. Please." Grant didn't speak. He reached out, grabbed the girl by her thin arm, and yanked her inside. He slammed the door against the storm. The thud of the bar dropping back into place echoed in the sudden quiet. "What happened?" Grant's voice was rust. He grabbed clean cloth from his cupboard, a bottle of whiskey, his old sewing kit. His hands moved fast, automatic. The boy flinched, crying out as Grant pressed the whiskey-soaked cloth to the bullet wound. It's Warren Kent." The name dropped into the cabin like a rattlesnake. Grant's hands froze for a single beat. Warren Kent. In Montana Territory, that name was a shadow that covered everything. He owned the banks, he owned the land, he owned the sheriff. Warren Kent was a king, and his word was law. "He killed a man," the boy Tommy gasped out. "A Blackfoot scout. Shot him, right in the back." His breath hitched. It was over a land deed, a piece of paper. He looked at his sister. Hope. She hadn't moved. She just stared at the fire, her face blank. "My sister," Tommy whispered, the words catching in his throat. She saw it. She was hiding in the woods. She saw him do it. Grant understood. He understood everything. "We've been running for 3 days. His men. They're hunting us." Grant's jaw set like iron. He knew what Kent did to witnesses. "Please," Tommy begged, grabbing Grant's sleeve with a bloody hand. "He'll kill her. You have to hide her. In the attic, under the floor, anywhere." He was desperate. "Sell her, I don't care. Just don't let him find her." Grant stopped patching the wound. He looked at the little girl. Hope. She stared back at him with those dead eyes. And for a second, Grant didn't see her. He saw another little girl, Lily, his daughter, 7 years old, the day he buried her. He shook the memory off, violently. He turned back to Tommy. His voice was quiet, but it was the coldest thing in the room. "I won't hide her." Tommy's face crumpled. "What? Sir, no, you don't understand." I understand, Grant said. He finished the bandage, tying it off tight. He stood up, walked to his pantry, and ladled a bowl of hot stew. He set it on the table in front of Hope. She didn't look at it. She just kept staring at the door, waiting for it to burst open. If they come, Grant said, his voice low, she'll be standing right here. He moved to the window. He pulled back the curtain. And they'll have to go through me first. Tommy started to protest, to argue, but Grant raised a hand. Get some rest, boy. We've got work to do in the morning. Grant looked out into the blackness. Somewhere out there, Kent's men were riding, hunting. He turned away from the window. He picked up his rifle. The rifle he hadn't touched in 3 years, not since the day his family died. He began loading it, one shell at a time. The click-clack of the shells was the only sound. Outside, the wolves howled. Inside, the fire crackled. And in the window, Grant did something strange. He set a lantern, and he lit it. A bright, burning signal in the middle of the dark, empty wilderness. The night stretched on, long and agonizing. Tommy slept fitfully on the floor, wrapped in Grant's only spare blanket, the fever from his wound making him cry out. Hope lay in Grant's bed. She hadn't taken off the rags on her feet. Her small body was curled into a tight ball, the wooden cross still clutched in her hand. Grant didn't sleep. He sat in his chair by the fire, the rifle across his lap. His coffee went cold in his cup. He just watched them breathe. He watched them, and he remembered. When Tommy woke near dawn, his eyes were bright with fever. Grant was already at the stove, heating broth. You should have hidden us, Tommy said, his voice rough. You should have put us in the cellar. Grant poured the broth into a tin cup. He handed it to the boy. Drink. Tommy obeyed, wincing as the hot liquid hit his cracked lips. Kent has 30 men, Tommy whispered, like saying it quiet made it less true. Maybe more. He owns the sheriff. He owns the whole town. You can't fight him. Not planning to fight him, Grant said. He sat across from the boy. Planning to stand. That's suicide. Maybe. Grant's voice was calm, but his eyes were hard as winter stone. 3 years ago, Grant said, staring into his coffee cup. A man like Kent came from my family. He spoke like he was reading from an old book. He wanted my water rights, said I was in his way. Grant paused. I tried to be smart. I negotiated. I tried to make a deal. His voice dropped. I hid my wife and daughter in town while I worked it out, sent them away, thought I was keeping them safe. He looked up, and his eyes were hollow. 2 days later, their wagon went off the road. An accident, the sheriff said. He gripped the cup. But I knew. Hiding them just made them easier targets. Separated. Alone. Tommy's face went pale. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, Grant said, standing up. Be ready. He walked to the door. He picked up a fresh plank from his wood pile. And a hammer. And nails. He placed the plank across the frame of the door. Bang, bang, bang. The sound echoed through the cabin like gunshots. You're fortifying, Tommy said, his eyes wide. I'm making a statement. Grant turned, hammer in hand. Kent's power comes from fear. It comes from people hiding, people running, people looking the other way. He pointed at the lantern, still burning in the window. That's how men like him win. Not today. In the bed, Hope stirred. She sat up slowly. Her eyes found Grant's face, and for the first time, something flickered in their depths. Not fear, something else. Grant walked over, knelt by the bed. You're safe here, little one, I promise. She didn't speak. Tommy said she hadn't spoken a word since the day their parents died, 2 years back. But she did something. She reached out a tiny, cold hand. and she touched Grant's weathered, calloused fingers. Just for a second. It was enough. When dawn broke, pale and gray, Grant opened the door. The lantern was still burning. Full daylight now. His small cabin, with the single light, was visible for miles across the white, endless snow. Tommy stared at him. "You're telling them," he whispered. "You're telling them where we are." Grant nodded. "I'm telling them we're not afraid." He looked out past his fence line to a small, simple wooden cross sticking out of the snow. His daughter's name, Lily. "I won't fail this time," he whispered. Then a small body pressed against his leg. It was Hope. She had followed him out. She looked at the grave. Then she looked up at Grant. Her lips moved. A sound came out, barely a breath. "Safe?" Grant's throat closed up. He couldn't speak. He just nodded. She leaned her head against his leg. He rested his hand on her hair. And for the first time in 3 years, Grant McCoy felt something other than guilt. He felt purpose. Then he heard it. Hoofbeats. Distant but coming fast. Multiple riders. Tommy's head snapped up. He grabbed Hope, pulling her back inside the cabin. "Get down! Get away from the window!" Grant didn't move. He stayed on the porch, rifle in his hand, and he waited. 4 men crested the ridge. Kent's brand was burned into their saddles. They rode slow, deliberate, spreading out as they approached, fanning out in a half-circle around the cabin, like wolves. Grant stood alone, a silhouette against the rising sun. Their leader dismounted, a man in his 30s, with a thick coat and a long scar that ran from his temple to his jaw. His eyes had seen too much and felt too little. Grant knew the name. Travis Dunn, Kent's top enforcer, the man who did his dirty work. "Mr. McCoy," Travis said. His voice was polite, respectful. He kept his hands visible, away from his gun. "We're looking for 2 runaways, a boy and a girl, stole from Mr. Kent." Grant didn't move a muscle. "No thieves here," he said, his voice flat. "Just guests." Travis Dunn's eyes flicked to the cabin window. For just a second, Hope's small face appeared. Then she was gone. Travis smiled. It was a cold, empty thing. "That's her, the girl. Mr. Kent wants her for questioning. It's a legal matter." "She's a child," Grant said. "She's under my roof. That makes her my business." One of the other riders spat in the snow. "Old man, you got no idea what you're stepping into." Travis raised a hand, silencing him. He studied Grant, not with anger, with curiosity. "You served," Travis said. "It wasn't a question. A long time ago. It shows." He shifted his weight. "Look, I respect what you're doing. A man's got a right to protect his home." He took a step closer. "But this ain't your fight. This is business. Mr. Kent is a reasonable man. He's offering $500. Cash." He pulled a thick roll of bills from his pocket. "Just hand over the girl. You walk away clean. Forget this ever happened." $500. More money than Grant had seen in 5 years. Enough to get through 10 winters. Grant's voice didn't rise. It didn't waver. "Some things ain't for sale." "Everything's for sale," Travis said. But he said it without conviction. He looked at Grant, and it was like he was looking in a mirror and didn't like what he saw. "This was a courtesy, Mr. McCoy," he said, his voice hardening. "Professional respect." He stuffed the money back in his coat. "Next time, Mr. Kent comes himself." He gestured to his men. "And he won't bring 4. He'll bring 20, maybe more. You think about that." "Already have." Travis stared at him for a long, hard second. He mounted his horse. He looked back one last time. Something passed across his face. Regret, maybe, or recognition. "You're signing your death warrant, old man." Grant's lips twitched. It wasn't quite a smile. Been dead 3 years. This is the first day I've felt alive. Travis just stared. Then he nodded. Slow. God help you. They rode off, kicking up snow, and disappeared back over the ridge. Grant watched them go. Only when they were gone did he lower the rifle. Tommy stumbled out onto the porch, his face white as the snow. What? What do we do now? Grant turned, reloading the rifle with steady, methodical hands. We wait, and we stand. Hope appeared in the doorway, silent and small. She looked up at Grant. Then she walked over, and she took his hand. Her fingers were cold, but her grip was sure. Grant knelt, meeting her eyes. You won't live in shadows, darling. Not while I breathe. She nodded. She didn't speak. But something in her face had changed. It was trust. That afternoon, Grant hitched his wagon. We're low on salt and shells, he said. Tommy's eyes went wide. We're leaving. You're going to town? We need supplies, and we need help. But Kent's men, they're watching, Grant said. But they won't act without Kent. Not yet. Let's move. Tommy climbed up. Hope sat between them. It was the first time she'd left the cabin. She stared at everything. The sky, the way the sunlight hit the snow, the tall, dark pines. It was like she was seeing the world for the first time. But the ride to town was chilling. Word had spread. Farmers who usually waved just looked away. When he pulled up to the general store, the street was empty. The store owner, a man Grant had known for 20 years, met him at the door. I can't serve you, Grant. I have money, Silas. It ain't about money. Kent's men were here. They said, anyone who helps you is an enemy of Mr. Kent. Silas wouldn't meet his eyes. I got a family, Grant. I can't. He closed the door. Grant just stood there. He tried the blacksmith, the feed store. Same story. Doors closed, curtains drawn. The whole town was terrified. Then a voice. Mr. McCoy. It was the sheriff. He walked up, adjusting his belt. A man Grant knew was on Kent's payroll. You're causing a disturbance, Grant. I'm trying to buy supplies, Sheriff. Folks are uneasy. This business with Kent, it's not your fight. You should hand those kids over. It's what's best for everyone. Is that the law, Sheriff? Or is that Warren Kent talking? The sheriff's face hardened. That's friendly advice. Go home, Grant, before you get hurt. Grant stared at him. The law was bought. The town was scared. He was alone. He got back on the wagon. Tommy looked at him, his face crushed. They all hate us. They don't hate us, Grant said, his voice grim. They're scared. He snapped the reins. But we're not going home. He didn't turn toward his cabin. He turned west. Where are we going? To see an old friend. They rode for another mile to a small, tidy farm. Martha Doyle's place. Martha was 70 if she was a day, the widow of Grant's old partner. She was tough as nails and twice as sharp. She answered the door with flour on her hands and a shotgun in the other. Grant McCoy, she said, her eyes narrowing. Haven't seen you in town for near 3 years. Thought you'd crawled into a hole to die. Been busy, Grant said. She saw the children in the wagon. She saw the set of Grant's jaw. And she understood everything. Get in, she said. All of you. Her kitchen smelled like bread and coffee. It was the safest place they'd been. Hope's shoulders, which had been up by her ears, relaxed for the first time. Grant explained. The murder, the deed, the kids, Travis Dunn, the town. Martha listened. With every word, her expression got harder and harder. When he finished, she spat the name. Kent. He's been terrorizing this territory for years. The law won't touch him. The sheriff's a snake." "I know," Grant said. "You can't fight him alone, Grant. He'll slaughter you." "I know that too." Martha studied him. She saw the man he was and the man he used to be. Then she nodded. A sharp, quick decision. "Give me 2 hours and stoke that fire. We're going to need more coffee." "What are you doing?" "I'm sending word. There's a few folks left in this valley who ain't forgot how to stand up." By evening, they came, one by one. Clyde Barrett, the blacksmith, the one who had refused Grant in town. "I'm sorry, Grant," he said, his voice low. "I was a coward, but Martha, she reminded me Kent's men cheated my brother out of his land last year. He died broke." He held up his arms, thick as tree trunks. "I'm done being a coward." Then, Ruth Winslow, a widow who'd scouted for the army. She was thin, weathered, and could shoot the wings off a fly at 100 yards. "Kent's men tried to rustle my cattle last month. I put a bullet in one of their horses. They promised to be back." She checked her rifle. "I'm ready for 'em." 2 ranchers from the northern valley. A preacher whose last church had been accidentally burned down after he preached a sermon about greed. 7 of them, counting Grant and Martha. Ruth was blunt. "Kent has 30 men. We're 7. The math don't favor us." Grant met her eyes. 7 standing beats 30 hiding. Clyde the blacksmith nodded slowly. "Then we stand." They planned through the night. Fortifications, supplies, fallback positions. Hope sat in the corner, watching. At some point she picked up a piece of charcoal from the fire. She began to draw on the back of an old feed sack. When she finished, she held it up for Grant. It was a drawing of a cabin, and 7 people standing around it, holding hands, and above them all, a giant sun rising. Grant's throat tightened. He took the drawing. He hung it carefully above Martha's fireplace. "That's what we're fighting for," he said quietly. "Not survival. Hope." Martha squeezed his shoulder. "We'll get 'em through this, Grant, or we'll die trying." They rode back to Grant's place under stars so bright they hurt. Hope fell asleep, her head resting on Grant's shoulder. Tommy looked at him in the dark. "Why are you doing this? For us? You don't even know us." Grant was quiet for a long time. "Because hiding didn't save my daughter," he said, his voice thick. "And I won't make that mistake twice." The cabin appeared ahead. The lantern he'd left was still burning in the window. A beacon. They were home. For now. Morning came cold and clear. Grant woke to find Hope already dressed. She was standing at the window, watching the horizon. He realized she'd been doing this every morning, waiting for the riders to come back. "They'll come," he said gently. She turned, startled. "But not yet. Kent's a careful man. He'll plan this proper. He wants it to look legal. Or like an accident." She turned back to the window. Her eyes asked the question her voice couldn't. "We'll be ready," Grant promised. After breakfast, eggs from Martha's hens, bread still warm, Grant started teaching Tommy the work of defense. Not how to fight, how to survive, how to reinforce a window without blocking the light, where to store water barrels to put out a fire, how to hold a rifle steady when your hands are shaking so bad you can't see straight. Fear made Tommy a quick study. Hope helped in her own way. She carried wood for the fire. She swept the floor. She fed the horse. Small tasks, but each one mattered. Each one said, "I belong here. This is my home." Around noon they heard hoofbeats. Grant and Tommy grabbed their rifles, but this time it was Clyde and Ruth. They were leading a mule packed with supplies, nails, boards, dried meat, and ammunition, boxes of it. "Town's talking," Ruth said, dismounting. "Half of them think you're crazy. The other half think you're a hero." Don't care what they think. You should, she said. She handed him a bundle of letters. These are from folks who want to help, but they're too scared of Kent to show their faces. Grant opened one. It was from Silas, the store owner. Inside was $20. The note just said, "For the children. God forgive me." Grant read another. From a school teacher. "What you're doing matters. Stay strong." He folded the letters carefully. "Tell them, thank you." That afternoon they worked. Clyde showed Tommy how to nail boards at an angle to deflect a bullet. Ruth took Hope aside. She started teaching her hand signals. Ways to communicate silently if noise was too dangerous. One finger, man. 2 fingers, rider. Fist, danger. Open hand, safe. Hope caught on in minutes. She pointed to the ridge. 1 finger, then she made a fist. Danger. Ruth smiled, a rare thin smile. Smart girl, she's a scout. They ate supper on the porch as the sun went down. Stew and hardtack. Coffee so strong it could wake the dead. The sky was red and gold, painting the snow like fire. Tommy asked the question they were all thinking. When will Kent come? Soon, Grant said. A man like him can't let this stand. It makes him look weak. He'll come. What if we lose? Grant looked at Hope. She was watching him, waiting for his answer. Then we lose standing, Grant said. That's all that matters. Clyde raised his tin cup. To standing. They echoed it, even Tommy. To standing. That night, Grant couldn't sleep. He walked the perimeter of his small property, checking the fences, listening to the night. The stars were cold and bright. He felt exposed. 7 people against 30. It was a fool's errand. When he came back inside, he found Hope sitting by the fire, wrapped in a blanket. She'd been waiting for him. He sat beside her. She didn't speak. She just leaned her head against his shoulder. They sat that way for a long time, just breathing. After a while, Grant started to talk. He told her about Lily, about her laugh, her stubborn streak, the way she'd hug his neck so tight he could barely breathe. I miss her, he whispered, the words tearing out of him. I miss her every day. Hope's small hand found his. She squeezed it. Once, I understand. Grant closed his eyes. For the first time in 3 years, talking about his daughter didn't feel like drowning. It felt like remembering. And that was enough. They came at dawn 2 days later. Grant saw the dust first, a single rider, but he was wearing a star. It's the marshal, Tommy breathed. Grant felt something unclench in his chest. Martha. She'd sent word to the U.S. Marshal in Helena, bypassing the county sheriff. Marshal Harding was in his 50s, weathered and all business. He dismounted slowly, his eyes taking in the fortified cabin, the nailed-shut windows, the water barrels. "Mr. McCoy," he said, his voice a low rumble. "I hear you've got a situation." Grant told him everything, the murder, Hope's testimony, Kent's threats, the town. Harding listened without interrupting. When Grant was finished, he just said, "Proof." "The boy has proof," Grant said. "Tommy." Tommy, shaking, came forward. He handed the marshal the land deed, the one he'd taken from the dead scout. Harding unfolded it. He read it. His expression darkened. "This is legitimate. This is the scout's legal claim to the water rights on Kent's south pasture." He looked at Grant. "If Kent killed over this, he's not just a murderer. His whole empire is built on fraud." "Will you arrest him?" Tommy asked, his voice trembling. Harding was quiet. "I'll try, but Kent's got reach. Judges, politicians, half the territory owes him." He looked at the cabin. "This won't be easy." "Nothing worth doing is," Grant said. Harding smiled, a grim, tight-lipped expression. You sound like a man I used to know. Good man. Dead now. Most good men are, Grant said. Not yet. Harding turned to go. I'll need the girl's testimony, a formal statement. He looked at Hope, his face softening a little. Can she speak, son? Hope stepped forward. She looked at Harding's star. Then she looked at Grant. Grant knelt. It's all right, little one. Tell him. She opened her mouth. Her voice was small, rusty from disuse, but it was clear as a bell. I saw him. 3 words. 3 words that changed everything. Tommy cried out, grabbing her in a hug. Martha, who had ridden over, wiped her eyes. Even Ruth looked impressed. Harding's face was set. Then we've got a case. He tipped his hat. I'll ride to Helena. I'll get the warrants. I'll deputize some men. He mounted his horse. You hold tight. Don't engage. Just hold. He rode off fast. And for the first time, Grant felt it. Real, actual hope. That afternoon, they celebrated. It was quiet, but it was real. Martha baked a cake with the last of her sugar. Clyde played a battered harmonica. And Hope, she smiled. She actually smiled. The sight of it hit Grant like a fist to the chest, but in a good way. Tommy pulled Grant aside, his face serious. You think it's over? No, Grant said, watching the ridgeline. Kent won't go quiet. He'll hear about the marshal. But we've got the law on our side now. That counts for something. That night, Hope spoke again. She came to Grant by the fire. Thank you. For what, darling? For not hiding me. Grant's eyes burned. He knelt in front of her. You don't hide light, Hope. You let it shine. She hugged him, fierce and sudden, her arms tight around his neck. And Grant McCoy, who hadn't held a child in 3 years, held her back, and he let himself cry. Outside, the stars wheeled overhead. The land lay quiet. But in the distance, Warren Kent was planning. And planning men are dangerous men. Kent came the next morning, not with 20 men, with 12. They rode in formation, professional, grim. Kent himself was in the lead. He was in his 50s, with a silver beard and an expensive coat. He looked like a senator. He moved like a king. Grant stepped onto the porch. Ruth and Clyde flanked him, rifles at the ready. Tommy kept Hope inside, his own rifle at the window. Kent dismounted. He walked up to the porch with a casual arrogance, like he was visiting a tenant. Mr. McCoy, I believe we have business to discuss. Got nothing to discuss with a murderer, Grant said. Kent's smile didn't reach his eyes. Strong words. Do you have proof of these allegations? The marshal does. Kent's expression flickered, just for a moment. Then he laughed, a deep, hearty laugh. The marshal. Ah, yes, I heard about that. Marshal Harding, an ambitious man. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Unfortunate timing, but these things, they have a way of working themselves out. Judges get sick, paperwork gets lost. Grant felt a chill. Kent was telling him the marshal couldn't save them, that his reach was longer than the law. I'm a reasonable man, Kent said, smiling again. I'm prepared to forget this misunderstanding. $1,000 in gold. He gestured to the land. And I'll sign over the deed to the northern pasture. Better water, all yours. He looked past Grant at the door. Just give me the girl. No, Grant said. She's confused, Mr. McCoy. Traumatized. Memory is an unreliable thing in a child. I'll see she's well cared for, a good home, an education. She's got a home. Kent's mask of civility cracked. His eyes went cold. Don't be a fool. You're one old man with a handful of broken-down farmers. I have 30 men on my payroll. We're not farmers, a voice said. Martha stepped out onto the porch. Then Ruth. then Clyde, then the 2 ranchers from the northern valley, and the preacher, and 3 more townspeople. Men who had seen Grant stand and arrived in the night. 10 people, all armed, all standing on the porch, fanned out behind Grant. Kent's eyes counted them, and for the first time, something like uncertainty crossed his face. Tommy appeared in the doorway. His voice shook, but he didn't back down. "You murdered a man in cold blood. We saw the deed. It was legal. You're a thief, and you're a killer." Kent's face went hard. "Boy, you don't know what you're talking about." "I know exactly what I'm talking about," Tommy yelled. "And so does everyone here." Kent looked at Grant, really looked at him. "This isn't over," he snarled. "I know," Grant said. Kent mounted his horse. "By sundown," he yelled, his voice echoing across the snow. "You'll regret this, all of you." They rode off, but Grant saw it. 6 of the men didn't follow Kent over the ridge. They split from the group, circling wide, taking up positions in the tree line. They were surrounded. Ruth saw it too. "We're besieged," Grant nodded, his face grim. "Then we dig in." They spent the day preparing. Extra water, food rationed, ammunition counted. The windows were barricaded, leaving only small firing positions. The cabin felt like a tomb. Hope drew another picture. This time, it was the cabin surrounded by darkness. But inside, a fire burned bright. Grant hung it next to the first drawing. "That's us," he said to her. "We're the fire." That night nobody slept. They took turns on watch, 2 at a time, rifles ready, eyes scanning the darkness. The 6 men didn't move. They just watched. 6 shadows in the trees, waiting. Inside, the tension was so thick you could cut it. Grant sat with Hope, telling her stories about Lily, about the time she tried to ride a calf and ended up in the horse trough, about her laugh. "You remind me of her," Grant said quietly. "Not just your age, your courage." Hope leaned against him. "I'm scared." "Me too," Grant whispered. "But being scared don't mean being weak. It means being human." She thought about that. "Will we die?" Grant was quiet for a long, long time. "I don't know, little one, but I know we'll stand, and that matters more." She nodded, satisfied. Outside, a coyote called. The wind picked up. A storm was coming. Grant checked his rifle one more time. He said a prayer he hadn't said in years. And he waited. The longest night of Grant's life started with silence. Kent's men didn't attack. They just watched. 6 shadows in the tree line, visible only when the moon broke through the clouds. They were waiting. But for what? Inside the cabin, the tension was a coiled spring. Martha prayed quietly in the corner. Clyde checked and rechecked his rifle, his hands flexing. Ruth watched the ridge line with the patience of a predator. Tommy paced, back and forth, back and forth. Hope sat by the fire, drawing. This time she drew faces. Grant recognized them. Tommy, Martha, Ruth, Clyde. And in the center, a drawing of Grant himself, holding her hand. Around midnight they heard it. Hoofbeats, a single rider, moving slow. "Everyone down," Grant hissed. He raised his rifle, aiming at the door. The rider stopped about 30 yards out, just inside the firelight. "Mr. McCoy, don't shoot. It's Travis Dunn." Grant's blood ran cold. Dunn, the enforcer. Kent's right hand. What kind of trick was this? "You've got 10 seconds, Dunn," Grant yelled through the door. "I need to talk. It's about the girl." Travis dismounted. His hands were visible, empty. Grant moved to the door, opening it just a crack. "Talk fast." Travis Dunn looked different. His face was pale. His scar looked like a fresh wound in the moonlight. "Kent's planning to burn you out," he said fast. "At dawn." Why would he? The marshal, Travis said. He heard Harding's getting warrants. He can't let the girl testify. He's going to burn the cabin. He looked at the ground. He'll say it was an accident. Dry wood, a winter candle. Nobody will question it. You'll all be dead. Grant stared at him through the crack. Why are you telling me this? You're his man. Travis was quiet. He looked up, and his eyes were filled with a pain Grant recognized. I was orphaned, he said, his voice rough. When I was 8, same age as that girl. Nobody stood for me. Nobody helped. I turned mean because that's all there was. He looked at the cabin. I see her face in the window, and I see mine. His voice broke. And I'm done. Grant studied him. You could be lying. Kent could have sent you, to trick us. He could have, Travis said. But he didn't. He reached into his coat. He pulled out a folded piece of paper. He tossed it onto the porch. That's Kent's orders, to his men, in his own handwriting, proof he planned this. Grant slowly opened the door, snagged the paper, and read it. His jaw tightened. It was real. What do you want in return? Grant asked. Nothing. Travis looked at the cabin door. Just tell that girl I'm sorry, for all of it. He mounted his horse. The marshal's a day out, maybe more. Kent knows it. He'll move at dawn. You've got maybe 4 hours. Thank you, Grant said. Travis nodded once. Then he rode back into the darkness. Grant bolted the door. He showed the others the paper. It's real. He's coming at dawn, with fire. Ruth checked her ammunition. Then we don't have much time. They worked fast. No more defense. Now it was survival. They moved the water barrels to the inside of the cabin. They created firing lanes. Martha led Hope and Tommy to the storm cellar, hidden under the floorboards. You'll be safe here. I won't hide, Hope said. Her voice was fierce. Grant knelt in front of her. This isn't hiding. This is protecting the flank. I need you and Tommy to be my reserve. I need you to be safe. Can you do that? Can you be a soldier? She understood. She nodded. I'll be ready. Tommy gripped Grant's hand. If something happens, it won't. But if it does, thank you for everything. Grant's throat closed. He pulled the boy into a brief, hard hug. You're going to be fine, son. Both of you. Dawn came faster than any of them wanted. The sky lightened from black to gray to a pale, sick gold. Birds began to sing, and then Grant saw them, not 6 men, 20, maybe more. Kent was at the front, and in his hand he held a torch. This is it, Grant said to Ruth. Hold your fire till I say. Kent's men spread out, a wide circle of death. They were raising their torches. Grant raised his rifle. And then he heard it. A new sound. Hoofbeats, a lot of them. Coming from the other direction, from the east. Kent heard it too. He turned. His face, smiling and cruel, froze. Riding hard over the ridge wasn't just Marshal Harding. It was Harding, with 5 deputized men. And behind them, 30 townspeople. Silas the shopkeeper. Farmers. The school teacher. On foot. On horseback. In wagons. Armed with rifles, shotguns, and pitchforks. They had seen the letters. They had heard about the siege. And they had finally decided to stand. And at the front, riding right next to the marshal, was Travis Dunn. He'd ridden all night, not to escape, to bring the law. Kent saw it all. His trap had closed. On him, his face went white. Marshal Harding rode straight up to him. Warren Kent, you're under arrest for the murder of Jonah Blackwood, for fraud, and for attempted arson. Kent's hand moved toward his gun, but Travis Dunn was faster. His pistol was drawn and aimed straight at Kent's chest. Don't, Travis said. Kent froze. His men looked at each other, uncertain. The marshal's voice rang out across the snow. "Any man who draws on a U.S. Marshal hangs. Think careful." One by one, Kent's men lowered their weapons. Kent stared at Grant. Across the distance, his eyes burned with hatred, but underneath it was fear. "This isn't over," he spat. Grant stepped off his porch. He walked slowly across the yard, right past the torches, until he stood face to face with Kent. "Yes," Grant said quietly. "It is." The trial lasted 3 days. Kent's expensive lawyers from back east tried to twist the story. They said Hope was a child, unreliable. They said Tommy was a thief. They said Travis was a liar, turning on his boss to save his own skin. But the evidence was too strong. The land deed. Kent's handwritten order to burn the cabin. And then Hope took the stand. She was small in the big chair, but her voice was steady. She told them what she saw, the argument, the gunshot, the way the scout fell. Every word landed like a hammer. The jury deliberated for 2 hours. Guilty, on all charges. As they led Kent away, sentenced to hang, he looked at Grant one last time. "You've made a powerful enemy." Grant's voice was calm. "No, I made a stand. There's a difference." Outside the courthouse, the townspeople cheered. They shook Grant's hand. They clapped him on the back. He just wanted to go home. Martha found him on the steps. "What now, Grant?" "Now," he said, looking at Tommy and Hope, "we rebuild." 2 weeks later, the paperwork was finalized. The judge, the same one who had sentenced Kent, signed the adoption papers with a smile. "You're a brave man, Mr. McCoy." "Not brave," Grant said. "Just stubborn." They held a small ceremony at the cabin. Martha, Ruth, Clyde, even Travis came. He stood awkwardly by the door, holding his hat. Hope walked right up to him. She looked at him for a long moment, then she held out her hand. "Thank you," she said. Travis took her small hand, his own rough and scarred. "I'm sorry," he whispered, "for all of it. I forgive you." 3 words, but they freed him. Travis stayed, working Grant's ranch, earning his redemption through sweat and honest labor. Life settled into a new rhythm, planting, mending fences, teaching Hope her letters. Tommy started learning the blacksmith trade from Clyde. One morning, Grant woke to find Hope at Lily's grave. She was placing a small bunch of wildflowers on the dirt. He approached quietly. "You don't have to do that." "I want to," she said, not looking up. "She shared you with me. I should say thank you." Grant knelt beside her, and he wept, openly. She wrapped her arms around his neck. "I love you, Papa," she whispered. The word broke him and healed him, all at the same time. "I love you too, darling." Spring deepened into summer. The cabin stopped feeling like a tomb. It started feeling like a home. One evening, they sat on the porch. The sunset painted the world gold. "Papa," Hope asked, leaning against his leg, "do you still miss Lily?" "Every day," Grant said quietly. "Does it hurt less now?" "It's different." He kissed the top of her head. "Loving you and Tommy doesn't replace loving her. It just makes my heart bigger." Tommy spoke, his voice deeper than it was a few months ago. "I used to think bravery was not being afraid, but you taught me different." "What's bravery then?" Grant asked. "Standing, even when you're scared," Tommy said. "Loving, even when you've lost. Trying again, even when it might hurt." Grant's throat tightened. "You're wiser than I ever was at your age." "I had a good teacher." The night deepened. A cool breeze carried the scent of those wildflowers. Hope's breathing slowed. She was asleep. Grant carried her inside, tucked her into her bed. "Love you, Papa," she mumbled. "Love you too, little one." Tommy went to his own bed, the loft Grant had built for him. "Good night, Papa." "Good night, son." Grant stood in the middle of his cabin. He looked at Hope's drawings, now framed on the wall, at Tommy's tools by the door, at the table set for 3. He walked outside one last time. He stood at Lily's grave. "I hope I made you proud," he whispered to the wooden cross. "I tried to do what you would have wanted. I tried to be brave." The wind rustled the flowers, and for just a moment, Grant could swear he heard her voice. "You did good, Papa. You did so good." He smiled, tears on his face. He touched the cross, and he walked back to his home. Inside, his children slept safe. Outside, the land was peaceful. Grant McCoy had spent 3 years dead. But tonight, he was alive, and that was enough. That was everything. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.